Okay, so final question for this video playlist. Question three on the object-oriented programming worksheet. Okay. Um, okay, for this question, something similar to the final generator slash iterator worksheet question. I want you guys to, if you haven't done the question already, just go through, read the question, the doc test, and try it yourselves. And yeah, pause the video before I go over the solution. Okay, let's do this. Question three. Let's use OOP to help us implement our good friend, the ping pong sequence. As a reminder, the ping pong sequence counts up starting from one and is always either counting up or counting down. Oh my gosh, I just spit on my iPad. At element k, the direction switches if k is a multiple of 7 or contains the digit 7. Okay, here's some important things. The direction switches if k is a multiple of 7 or contains the digit 7. So the first 30 elements of the ping-pong sequence are listed below, with direction swaps marked using the brackets at the 7th, 14th, 17th, 21st, 27th, and 28th elements. Okay, that was a lot of information, and yeah. The very first thing is we need to write down what we want to keep track of, right? There's two things that come to mind, right? The first is like the index and also the value, right? Because the index and value change. The index will always be incrementing, right? Because even though the value here is 6, this is actually the 8th index, right? We're going to keep track of index and value. And then there's one more thing that we should keep track of. And something to do with switching the direction. We need like a Boolean value that is either true and false. And if it's false, we like reverse direction. We're no longer like adding one to our value. So I guess just like direction, right? A direction variable. So these are the variables that are part of our implementation, and we're going to instantiate them within our init method, right? So inside here, say we have a self dot index, and I'm going to leave the equal to blank for now. Self dot value, right? And a self dot direction. Okay, cool. And I think we'll fill in what these uh, variables are initially after we go through some of the implementation in the next method. Okay, so what do we want to do in the next method? Okay, well, first, want to increment, right? We want to increment value every single time, but we only want to increment it, right? If we don't hit an index that is a multiple of 7 or contains the digit 7 in it, okay? So how can we, how do we know whether to add one or, I guess, subtract one in a sense? Well, we have this self-direction here, right? And say we set this to true. If self-direction is true, then we want to keep on adding. If self-direction is false, then we don't want to add. We actually want to subtract decrement value by 1. And the way we switch like the Boolean value of self-direction is in another condition when the index, right, is a multiple of 7 or has a digit 7. Okay, so say if self.direction, which is initially set to true, then we're gonna increase value by 1. Else, if self-direction is false, then we're actually gonna decrement value by 1, right? And in the doc test, you can see this happening, right? Once we hit the index 7, we start decrementing. And then once we hit, what is this, 14, I believe, we go the opposite way. Okay. So what are our conditions? What are the two conditions that are important, right? It switches direction if k is a multiple of 7 or contains the digit 7. So if we're thinking multiple of 7, we are like recalling, oh, right? This is like digit manipulation, so mod, florative, and for this problem, right, mod is going to be very useful because if the index is if index mod 7 is equal to 0, that's going to show that our index is a multiple of 7. But how do we check if it contains the digit 7? Well, in the question, we have this handy has 7 function that's already given to us, and it will turn true if k contains the digit 7. In this case, k will be our index. So let's create a new if condition, and we're going to have two things here. First, we can go with the multiple. If self.index mod 7 equals 0, so basically if index is a multiple of 7, or has 7 self.index. What are we going to do here? Well, we want to switch the direction. So we're going to set self.direction to the opposite of what it is currently. So not self.direction, right? So this will switch it to false if it's currently true, and switch it to true if it's currently false. And then we're going to increment the index always by 1. Index is always increasing. And then what do we want to spit out? Well, we don't want to spit out index or direction, right? What Python ultimately outputs is only the value. So nothing is returned except for self dot value. Cool. So what is index and value then? Well, we see here that when we call method, the value is going to increment by 1 always before it's returned. So what does that mean? You see that first value here is going to be 1. So if our value is incremented before it's returned, then we want our value actually to start with 1, because then it will go through this entire method, this if condition, increase by 1, and then be outputted as 1. And then how about index? Well, index is, never returned. So actually, index can simply start at 1, right? And this is, we always like increment by 1. This is going to be first index, second, and so on. So yeah, this is the implementation of ping pong. And unfortunately, this is I won't be like going over the fourth question because it's fairly long, and I didn't find like a very succinct way to explain it without going over like 10 minutes maybe. And I also really need to study for my midterm tomorrow. But anyways, hopefully this question here, these videos were helpful. And yeah, I'll promise to make sure a room not to book over 3 hours this week, so we actually have a room for Friday. But anyways, yeah, hopefully these videos were helpful.